Let me make this clear. If the grid goes down tonight, your house has a 1 in 14 chance of being targeted before sunrise. Not in a week, not when food runs out, but in the first 5 hours. According to Homeland Security data and post-disaster reports from 2023 and 2024, looting, break-ins, and home invasions spiked by 340% within the first night of widespread outages. Why? Because panic doesn't build, it explodes. Power dies, cell towers blink out, and suddenly, silence becomes surveillance. Every sound, every flicker, every mistake you make becomes a signal. And predators, they're not waiting, they're already watching. In this video, I'm walking you through the 8 most common silent mistakes that turn your house into a target before the first flashlight battery dies. You think it's about being prepared? No. It's about not looking like you are. Let's get into it. 8. Running water when nobody else has it. You want to know what makes you a prime target in the first 5 hours of a blackout. Running water. Not lights, not heat, not even a generator hum. It's the sound of a toilet flushing, a faucet running, a shower hitting tile. Why? Because when the grid dies, so does municipal water pressure. And that drop happens fast. According to a 2021 FEMA report on critical infrastructure interdependency, over 70% of residential water systems lose usable pressure within 3 hours of full power failure. So, the first time you wash your hands like it's just another Tuesday, you've just marked yourself as having storage tanks, gravity-fed plumbing, a hand pump system, or worse, potable reserves, and that noise travels. In total silence, a flushing toilet can be heard through walls, through pipes, even across connected housing units. Ever heard of acoustic plumbing trace? Looters have. In South America during the 2020 Argentine blackout, gangs used rudimentary stethoscopes and plastic tubing to listen through sewer access points, identifying homes with active water flow. And if you think that's niche, think again. In Detroit's 2003 blackout, 17 homes were burglarized solely because toilets flushed when others didn't. Eyewitness accounts verify that fact in police interviews. So, what's the fix? First, switch to bucket flushes only, no tanks. Keep a lidded 5-gallon bucket in the bathroom with water from non-potable sources and pour with control. No rush, no splash. Second, disable all automatic fill valves. You don't want a post-blackout pump system making your toilet refill when you're not thinking. Third, use gray water for everything non-drinking. Dish rinse, sponge baths, toilet dumps. And fourth, limit audible water use to daylight hours. Why? Because background noise, birds, cars, wind, mask sound. At night, you're a siren. And if you've rigged a hand pump or cistern, keep it covered with soundproofing. The mistake here isn't that you have water. It's that you advertise it, unknowingly with every flush and splash. And in the first 5 hours, water doesn't just quench thirst. It invites danger. Don't be the only house on the block that sounds hydrated. That sound is priceless, and people will come for it. 7. Pets that still act like it's normal. You want to stay invisible in the first 5 hours of a blackout? Then you'd better get your pets on the same page, because your dog doesn't know it's collapse time. Your cat still jumps in the windowsill. Your parrot still whistles at passing shadows. And if your animals are loud, playful, or active when every other house is tense, dark, and silent, they give you away. See, people watch for signs, and in a grid-down scenario, anything that moves or makes noise is a signal. During the 2022 California rolling blackouts, behavioral researchers from USC noted that barking dogs in well-fed households were a common indicator of power resilience. How? Because those pets were still on routines, still getting fed, still being walked, still acting like nothing happened. And you know who notices that kind of thing? Desperate people. When you hear a dog bark twice a day like clockwork, or see someone walking a leashed pet at sundown, you don't think they're surviving. You think they've got supplies. And in post-disaster Ukraine 2022, multiple apartment raids were traced back to parakeets and cockatiels that wouldn't stop chirping while others starved. Why? Because birds don't sing when they're hungry or cold. They go silent. So if yours is tweeting, someone's feeding it. And that, my friend, is information. So what do? First, retrain feeding schedules. Randomize when and how much. Second, cut out vocal triggers. If your dog barks at squirrels or footsteps, muzzle or isolate them during high-risk windows. Third, block visual stimuli. Cover cages, close blinds, black out pet doors. And finally, change routines. No more walks, no outside pet bowls, no brushing in the backyard. Your dog may be family, but in the dark, he's also a walking announcement. We're still okay in here. That's fine when society is intact. But in the first 5 hours of collapse, a barking dog isn't loyal. It's lethal. Because he doesn't just protect you, he reveals you. And in a blackout, revelation is ruin. 6. The smell of clean clothes and detergent. You ever step outside on laundry day and catch that crisp scent of dryer sheets and warm cotton riding the breeze? Normally, that smell means comfort, hygiene, normalcy. But during a blackout, that smell is a homing beacon. It tells the whole street you've got water, soap, electricity, or at least a working manual washer and the discipline to use it. And more importantly, it tells them you're clean, which means you're prepared, which means you have everything they don't. What most people forget is that scent is one of the strongest survival cues the human brain reacts to. In silence and darkness, when vision and sound are limited, smell takes over. A 2020 University of Chicago study on olfactory recall in disaster zones showed that individuals under stress identified and remembered scents 5 times more effectively than visuals. That's terrifying. Because in a blackout, even the faint smell of detergent or fabric softener becomes a neon sign. During the 2017 blackout in Puerto Rico, aid workers reported that looters often followed scent trails of soap and shampoo to locate functioning homes. People who hung clothes out to dry were watched. One couple was robbed not because they used a generator, but because a neighbor noticed their baby's laundry smelled like lavender. Think about that. Lavender. A single scent betrayed their entire security. Here's how you fix it. 1. Switch to unscented detergent. Now, not later. Make that your baseline. 2. Do laundry before the grid goes down and do it sparingly after. Hand wash small batches inside. No outdoor drying. No fluttering towels. No scent escaping the walls. Use drying racks near sealed windows and keep the space layered with charcoal, vinegar, or baking soda to absorb lingering smells. Third, wear older clothes outside. Keep the newer stuff for indoors. And here's the kicker. Don't smell clean. Rub dirt on your cuffs. Smudge your collar. In the first 5 hours, clean equals stable. Stable equals stocked. And stocked is just another word for next victim. You don't need to smell like a cave dweller, but you sure as hell shouldn't smell like spring breeze. 5. Emergency radio broadcasts playing too loud. Here's a mistake nobody talks about until it's too late. Listening to the emergency radio loud enough for someone else to hear it. Seems harmless, right? You're staying informed. You're doing what FEMA says. Tune in, stay updated. But guess what? In a full blackout, the sound of a radio broadcast is the new definition of power. And in those first 5 hours, when most people's phones are dead and their information lifelines are cut, hearing someone else's radio, that's like hearing Morse code in a war zone. It tells them you've got batteries, you've got awareness, you're ahead of the curve. And worst of all, you're tuned into something they're not. You've got intel. That makes you dangerous, or at least a valuable asset to exploit. In 2021, after the Category 4 Hurricane Ida knocked out power to over 1 million people in Louisiana, there were over 60 reported break-ins where victims said the attackers mentioned hearing voices from inside. They weren't talking about people. They meant radios. In one case, a family listening to a weather update on a crank radio was hit just an hour later. The looters didn't take food. They took the radio, the batteries, and a pair of walkie-talkies they found in a kitchen drawer. Why? Because in chaos, comms are gold. It's not just what you hear, it's the status it implies. So how do you fix it? First, volume discipline. Keep radios low, really low, enough that only someone within a few feet can hear. Second, use headphones, but never wireless. Bluetooth signals can be detected with scanners. Use cheap wired buds. Third, if you must listen out loud, do it deep indoors with windows sealed and walls buffered with pillows, blankets, or even cardboard. Fourth, never repeat what you hear outside. Don't run out and tell neighbors about relief trucks or water stations. The minute you act informed, they'll want to know how. And then they'll want what you have. In a blackout, staying updated is smart. Letting others hear you stay updated, That's suicide by frequency. 4. Flash charging devices while the grid's down. You think it's smart. You've got a solar bank or backup battery, and you use the blackout as a quiet moment to top off your phone or charge your flashlight. No problem, right? Wrong. Flash charging is a bright red flag, especially in the early hours when people still believe the grid might come back on. Here's the deal. When you fast charge anything, your phone, your radio, your lantern, it makes a distinct whine. Not loud, but not silent. Lithium battery bricks and high-amp chargers emit a high-frequency hum and heat that gives you away. Not just to ears, but to infrared. In disaster zones with no ambient noise and no traffic, even that faint buzz gets noticed. You ever hear a battery bank whine at night in a silent room? You never forget it, and neither do the people hunting for life signs in the dark. In the 2023 freezing blackouts across parts of Poland, survivors reported small bands of looters using thermal scopes, yes, hunting scopes, to spot battery hotspots and even faint charging heat coming off power stations. It doesn't take military-grade gear. Some of these were $200 Amazon monoculars. One case, a woman who left her USB light charging in the kitchen overnight got robbed before dawn. The looters weren't dumb. They knew what a red glowing outlet meant. Someone's got juice. So how do you keep it stealth? First, charge deep inside, in insulated or heat-deflecting containers. Coolers, storage bins, even wrapped in aluminum blankets. Second, time it for dusk or ambient noise windows. Rainfall, distant helicopters, barking dogs. Third, never charge visibly. Not near windows, not in open kitchens or porches. And fourth, disable quick charge settings. Trickles are slower, but they don't heat up. That heat signature is your Achilles heel. You want to charge? Fine. But understand that even the act of powering up can label you as a resource hoarder. In those first 5 hours, people aren't desperate yet. They're watching, they're listening, they're learning who still has options. And once they mark you, you're not surviving anymore. You're just waiting to be harvested. 3. Street-facing windows that reflect candlelight or device glow. You shut off the lights. You kill the TV. You even put up blackout curtains. But here's the problem. Most people forget the reflection. It's not just the light source you need to hide. It's what bounces off glass, tile, polished furniture, or worst of all, your windows from the outside. Because in the first 5 hours of a blackout, the human eye becomes hyper-tuned to glints, flickers, and ambient reflections. That little shimmer from a phone screen bouncing off a picture frame. Someone across the street just saw it. The faint glow of an LED charging light mirrored on a dusty pane. That's all it takes. In 2022, a study by the American Urban Safety Network tracked low-light behavior during blackout training drills in Atlanta. Participants were able to detect light reflected off third-story windows from over 150 feet away. And this wasn't even total collapse, just a simulated grid down. Add total silence, desperation, and pitch-black surroundings, and your kitchen counter becomes a damn lighthouse. It happened in Beirut during the 2021 rolling blackouts. Looters would roam rooftops at dusk with binoculars, not looking for lit windows, but for reflections. One apartment was hit because of a shimmer off a wall clock. Yes, a clock. So what's the fix? First, cover all windows, not just with blackout curtains, but with absorptive layers. Think thick blankets, cardboard, dark towels. And make sure they're pinned flush. Any gap lets light bleed. Second, take down mirrors, glass-framed art, and anything shiny that could throw light back through the curtain. Third, relocate screens, candles, or devices away from exterior walls entirely. Use interior rooms. No direct lines to glass, period. And fourth, turn off all charging indicator lights or cover them with tape. You're not hiding the light source anymore. You're hiding the echo of light. And in a blackout, it's not the brightest house that gets hit first. It's the one with the first flicker. And if that flicker bounces off a window pane, you just told the whole block exactly where to start looting. 2. Sounds of comfort. Music, conversation, or laughter. This one hits harder than most people expect. The thing that gets you looted fastest in a blackout? Happiness. That's not a joke. The moment someone hears your house humming with music, light conversation, or, God forbid, laughter, you've crossed a line. You've broken the illusion of shared suffering. And nothing draws attention like the sound of someone coping better than you. In a blackout, comfort becomes envy, and envy becomes violence. During the 2020 COVID-era blackout in Manila, Power was out across slums and suburbs alike. But one family who had a Bluetooth speaker running lo-fi music in their courtyard became a magnet. First came the knocks, then came the questions. You got power, got a generator. Then came the rocks, the shouting, the break-in, all because someone heard them vibing. And if you think that's an isolated case, think again. In 2019, a Red Cross post-hurricane survey in Florida found that 68% of looted homes were ones where audible human voices or music were heard during the first 6 hours of the outage. Think about that. Not food smell, not lights, voices. Why? Because sound is community. And in a crisis, people resent anyone who still has community. People who are still talking, joking, planning. They assume if you're calm enough to chat, you're comfortable enough to have supplies. That's the logic of panic. And it turns your living room into a target. So how do you stay safe? 1. Kill the tunes. No exceptions. If you must listen, use earbuds. Never speakers, not even quiet ones. 2. Keep conversations low. Use code words. No open discussions near walls or windows. 3. Train your household in whisper discipline. Every word should feel like it's being spoken in a war zone. 4. Eliminate laughter triggers. Don't watch comedy, don't joke about the situation. And for the love of survival, don't let kids scream laugh inside. You don't want to be the house with joy. Because in a blackout, joy is suspicious, joy is unforgivable, and the sound of laughter might as well be the sound of coins hitting pavement. People will come running. 1. Letting your dog bark at strangers. You think your dog is a protector, a deterrent, a loyal guardian that'll bark and growl and keep threats away. But here's what you don't realize in those first 5 hours of a blackout. That bark is an alarm clock for every desperate ear within 3 blocks. It doesn't matter if the dog's alerting to a real threat or just a raccoon. What matters is what it tells people, that there's movement, that there's alertness, that there's someone home. And once they know that, they start watching, waiting, timing. In a 2023 field study during the Los Angeles brownouts, security consultants placed decibel meters outside suburban homes. Dogs that bark during early blackout hours quadrupled the number of pedestrian loitering incidents around their property. Why? Because people aren't scared off by the bark. They're attracted to it. They think, that house is awake, that house is watching, that house probably has something worth guarding. And worse, they start counting how many times the dog barks. They figure out where the dog is. And eventually they figure out how to get past it. In Venezuela's 2019 collapse, entire neighborhoods trained themselves to stay dead quiet. But one family had a shepherd that kept barking at passing shadows. It cost them everything. The dog was poisoned with bait. The house was looted the next night. No alarms, no signs of forced entry, just timing and patience. All they needed was to confirm someone was guarding food. The dog did the rest. So how do you avoid this? First, train your dog now to stop barking on command. Second, relocate it indoors during high-risk hours, ideally far from windows or walls. Third, control visual triggers. Block its view of the street entirely. Fourth, stop treating barking like security. It's not. In a blackout, barking is a flare, a repeated ping saying, we're alive, we're aware, we're worth watching. And once you've been marked, it's only a matter of when, not if. Your dog might love you, but in those early hours, that love can get you killed. So now you know, it's not the second week or the end of the month or some slow burn Mad Max fantasy. It's the first 5 hours. That's when the masks drop. That's when your smallest habits, light, sound, routine, comfort, start betraying you. And the scariest part, you probably didn't even know you were making the mistakes, because in normal life, they're invisible, harmless. But in a blackout, they're invitations. Invitations for desperate people to notice you, envy you, and take from you. You don't survive the first night by being strong. You survive it by being forgettable. Forgettable, invisible, boring. That's your armor. Because when the grid dies, the rules don't change, they vanish. And the only thing keeping the wolves off your porch is the illusion that there's nothing worth taking. So check your habits, train your house, train your people, because the first 5 hours decide who makes it to day 2. And most people, they never even get the chance.